Good morning, it's Sean McIntyre speaking. This is my submission for the Activity Centres Planning Program Phase 1 for Blackburn.
Passengers, please finish boarding. The train is ready to depart. Is turning now.
Please stand by. This property is at 9 to 11 Main Street, Blackburn. I bought the unit in 1990 when I was just turned 24. And 9 to 11 Main Street is just south of Blackburn Station. So the marketing collateral for the planning activity and the community meetings I've been to, the last one being yesterday at the Field Naturalists Society in Gardenia Street, and 2 or 3 weeks before that at the Blackburn RSL. Encourages us to tell the Victorian Planning Minister Sonia Kilkenny and the Victorian Labor government, tell us what you like about your community. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show you what I like about my local community, where I moved to after growing up in Balwyn at the age of 24. I became a property owner here without anyone's help, and I paid off a 25-year mortgage all by myself with no one's help. So if I haven't lost your attention 3 minutes in, this submission is an invitation to the Victorian Planning Minister Sonia Kilkenny, because I read in The Age, and I've subsequently learnt a little more, that Sonia Kilkenny was swayed by an invitation to walk around the Blackburn Bellbird area. But this is my area, and I want to know, or I want to not be negative, but I would like Sonia Kilkenny to see the part of Blackburn that means so much to me and so many other people. And I would like to show you what I love about this area in the morning, during the day, in the evening. And you can see why people want to come here from other parts of Melbourne just to see. And this is good for your mental health. And it's part of the reason why so many people in these streets love living here. So the instructions were, or the recommendations were from the community groups, not to complain, not to talk about yourself and how this all directly affects you and what makes you anxious and what impact it's going to have on you personally, to talk about the greater good. What is good about this area for society. I'm not speaking from a prepared script. I'm not going to put words to paper, which is the right way to do it, but I'm going to speak as I show you how this area is unique. And I wonder why the things that makes Melbourne unique, and what makes Blackburn unique and Brighton unique, all the places we love about our hometown, which is so often recognised as the most livable city in the world, or one of them, all the things that make Melbourne, and specifically this morning Blackburn, what makes it unique, could be diminished by making everywhere around Melbourne a sea or a cluster of towers, or 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, 20 storey towers all around Melbourne. All look the same. What I love about Blackburn is this street. I don't live in it. I walk through it because it has a special connection for me personally, because it's good for my mental health. Because when I was a carer, getting on the train for 4.5 years, travelling from Blackburn to Sunbury twice a day to care for my parents, living in COVID by myself, and then for another 4.5 years visiting both parents in aged care and watching them decline and pass away, being unemployed, not having any support. This walk that I'm taking you on, Planning Minister Kilkenny and Paul Hamer and Richard Welsh and the Bellbird Residents Association and the CORAG community group, I love this street. I love the trees and the houses in this street. And if I'm going to be honest, as we approach my favourite house on this property, and I consider the effect of the proposed planning changes, where buildings without any notice or review, so long as they meet a planning criteria, houses like this, which don't always have a kookaburra sitting outside them, and this camera can't zoom, so you can't perhaps see it. And that is what I love about Blackburn: the kookaburras, the parakeets, the galahs, he's heard me, all the general fauna. So the kookaburra is distracting me now. This house has just recently been renovated and painted, but the planning changes, you want properties to go right up to the edge of their boundary. You want houses like this not to exist anymore. Whether you can see the kookaburra or not, I have to move on because of battery and space on this card. But my invitation to going back to the Age article where Paul Hamer got about 4 lines in the article how he invited Sonia Kilkenny to walk around Blackburn, which turned out to be the Bellbird area. But for the planning minister, this is my way of showing you my Blackburn, our Blackburn. How can it benefit society and our mental health and our well-known reputation as one of the most livable cities in the world? This is in also primarily in the planned catchment investigation area. The proposal to make any property in anywhere in Melbourne, not just Blackburn, the domain of heightened properties of 2 to 4 to 8 to 10 to 12 to 20 stories. How does that make Melbourne and Blackburn specifically a better place to live if there's 76,000 more people living here? We're now we're about 1/3 the way through this tour, Minister Kilkenny, and I invited Paul Hamer, and I've also invited Richard Welsh, both of whom I know care about this area. I've invited them to my home to look at the view outside my lounge room window. It's only a 1-bedroom unit. I cannot claim to be a NIMBY, not in my backyard, resident of Blackburn, because I don't have a backyard. I have very little, and I'm very happy with the very little that I've got. And the thing that I value the most is something that can't be monetized or valued on a balance sheet or in property planning proposals, is the northern sun from the direction in front of the camera that crosses from east to west. That ability to sit in my lounge room and enjoy the sun and see the sky, it's all I've got. It's all I've got. A 1-bedroom unit, and mine was constructed in 1976. I'm the second owner. Literally bought it off the old lady who went to church once a week. And it used to be that a 1-bedroom unit, the size of the one that I now own outright, it used to be considered that 1-bedroom unit used to be considered very small. But as I've come to realise, especially since COVID, and especially with, and you can see them in the distance, these new style residential properties that are being built and proposed to be built around Melbourne, I've come to realise that my property is pretty special and a mansion by comparison to those that are on the market and those that are proposed to be on the market. So it goes back to a question of what do we value. You can say build more homes for people, yes, but when they're just a space with a lounge room that serves as a dining room, there's no separation between lounge room and kitchen. There's a very small bedroom, and you've got all these places and towers. And then you come to a place like Moreton Park, which now those club rooms have been co-opted by a Christian college. 76,000 people. How are they all gonna... There's only a limited, finite amount of public space. You can see tennis courts there to the west. Where's the space for 76,000 people to adequately and properly enjoy this public space? And this comes off the back of the other reason I wanted to speak like this as opposed to write. I have been a public health patient at Box Hill Hospital twice since July. 8 days to treat what turned out to be a dodgy gallbladder, which was removed, and only this week an overnight patient for 2 nights for a colonoscopy. So again, where is the infrastructure support with something like a public hospital that is going to serve the 76,000 extra people coming into Blackburn, however many thousands of extra people coming into Mitcham, and the thousands more coming into Nunawading, and there's only one Box Hill Hospital, there's only one Moreton Park. I invited, going back to my what I value most about my home, I've invited Paul Hamer and Richard Welsh, and I invite Sonia Kilkenny to come to my home and see the northern view out my lounge room window. The only thing that I really value, besides having a roof over my head and a place to live. Come and see what I am afraid of losing, what I'm afraid of my neighbours losing. And speaking of loss, you've already taken away something that I loved, which was, yes, there's trees here, but before these trees was a limited stretch from here all the way down past the tennis club was the Moreton Park pine trees, and they were taken out and never put back, as was so much. And I documented all of that change in a mockumentary web series about the Blackburn level crossing removal. And I'm including the episode that speaks to the planning around that speaks to the loss of those Moreton Park trees. And also I want to mention here this bike path, which is great for the cyclists, very unsafe for people on foot like me, and I'll get to that later. I have 48 minutes of card left and half a battery, and I'm only halfway through this tour, which is for Sonia Kilkenny, the Planning Minister, the Victorian Planning Minister, Paul Hamer, Richard Welsh, the Bellward Residents Association and the Co-Rag Community Group. And again, the purpose of this tour this morning is my submission, Sean McIntyre, a resident at Unit 711 Main Street, Blackburn, to show you what I love about living in Blackburn. And now we're into the industrial side of Blackburn, where so many small businesses operate quite successfully, quite profitably, quite sustainably. Now, just ahead is the first of 3 commercial properties that magically have come on the market since the government's announcement, and I've documented each of these properties separately. I may not get time to put 2 of them into this submission before the deadline, but they will be there definitely after the deadline. So all of a sudden, property owners in Blackburn have seen the opportunity and they want to take advantage of it. In Queen Street, 8,500 square metres of property is up for sale as a package or separately. Just here in Cottage Street, about 6,500 square metres from memory is now up for sale. And the Nerve Centre, as it's called, which is actually the headquarters of the Multiple Sclerosis Society of Victoria, is also up for sale. So that's about 20,000 square metres of commercial industrial land holding now up for sale. And you can see behind it is the Pace Group development, which is the old Leader newspaper site, which became 3 towers during COVID and may go to 4. So this Pace building, is this the type of property that is going to be erected outside my lounge room window, outside my kitchen window? Because that's a pretty typical example of what the Victorian state government wants to surround my home. And with the extra 76,000 people, I wonder, does that also mean another explosion of these underground illegal brothels? In Blackburn, there are 8. I cannot walk out of my home without passing a massage shop masquerading as a massage shop. They are illegal brothels, and it is disgusting that Blackburn is infested with 8 of them, and this underground brothel is situated opposite Blackburn Primary School, and it's on this footbridge that many parents walk their kids to St Thomas the Apostle, and they walk their kids past this underground brothel every day and every night. So what I love about Blackburn My home is the absence of these towers. And I feel that the online questionnaires, the community discussions, the marketing collateral is loaded and biased towards telling us, don't you want more affordable homes for more people to live in? Well, that's the wrong question. As a voter and a citizen, where was the public discussion and where was the agreement, the social contract between the federal and state governments and their constituents about that this population explosion was going to take place? So when we talk about infrastructure, there's only one Blackburn primary school and 76,000 more residents. How many more kids can the government fit into this finite space? And you can see the Korean restaurant. I want to talk to the false economy of property development in Australia. You can see the Korean restaurant there. Now, what you won't know about it, and I will now tell you, is that property, that business was originally, when the whole property was finished and the tenants started moving in, originally a Japanese restaurant. Which earlier this year, 2025, that Japanese restaurant went out of business. And what I want to show you here, the reason why I've crossed the road, so that kitchen stone started out as a personal gym, and that went out of business. And just ahead of us, you'll recognise a very well-known restaurant chain called Groove Train. That opened up about 3 or 4 months ago because the original tenant, I forget what it was called, but they fitted it out and they moved in and they went out of business. So my question is, for all this property development and talking about more jobs and more homes, there's evidence that it's a false economy. That there is no... You can say, well, what about all these residents that live in these towers? Well, if they all live here and they all shop and eat here and socialise here, why did they go out of business? But I'm trying not to be negative, because I don't want my submission to be tossed aside. We're about not quite 3/4 of the way through this tour. I should be able to complete it on this card with the remaining battery. So this is also part of the investigation catchment area for planning phase 1. And I'm pretty sure that this area, Melbourne in general, Sydney, I'm pretty sure that all around the world cashed up property investment conglomerates have all this area mapped out using satellite technology, and then just biding their time, waiting for the moment when the old couple that live there, who have probably owned that property, their first house, for 50, 60, 70 years, those conglomerates just waiting for people like that to die. So they can move in, scoop up surrounding properties maybe, and take advantage of the new proposed planning laws that will put a tower right here up against the fence. Blackburn, I must admit, I thought Blackburn was safe. I thought Laburnum was safe, especially when the level crossing was removed, because the government cynically didn't upgrade the station for whatever reason, and they took away all the trees and all the bluestone landscaping, all the English oaks, because they were deemed to be not native to Australia, and replaced it with concrete, which is now native to Australia. And I thought Blackburn had escaped the towers of Box Hill. I thought that the development would finish at the Box Hill City Oval forever. And when the suburban rail loop was declared, and the first of the suburban rail loop planning changes were announced between Christmas Day and New Year's Day 2023, I thought Blackburn would still escape, and to my utter dismay, I've found that that's not the case. So you can see the Sky One tower from here, and those towers now block the view from Mont Albert, Whitehorse Road into the Dandenongs. You can't see it anymore. So what young family can afford to live in a tower like Sky One? And the property value of towers like Sky One that could be built, that is Queen Street, where there's 8,500 square metres of property now up for sale. And if a Sky One tower goes up there, and it very well could, because we already know, it's a fact, that Sonia Kilkenny likes approving towers in suburban areas near railway stations that residents don't want, which is the case in Greensborough, that will change the character and the nature of the area that local residents love the most and value the most. How is a young family going to afford to live in those towers? Because they won't be priced at current market rates. They'll be priced at the property development rates. And how will the property development that boosts the value of the properties in the area as they rise, how is that going to affect all of us, our property rates from the council, how much will they go up? How will our future selves manage the affordability of property rates that rise because the land value's risen? And how will those of us that live in one-bedroom units with no backyard, when our body corporate fees go up, which there's nothing we can do about it, it's like living with an eternal landlord, even though I'm a property owner. How will that affect our futures? So 76,000 people, some of them are going to live here. Will there be enough room at Blackburn Primary School for those kids in those new places? Or will they become Airbnbs managed by digitally savvy and sophisticated, smart young Asian people who manage 5 Airbnbs at one time, which locks out young families, the very people that these proposed planning changes aim to benefit. So we're now into the final part of this morning's tour. This tour is for the Victorian Planning Minister, Sonia Kilkenny, the member for Box Hill, Paul Hamer, and the Liberal member for the Metropolitan East Region, Richard Welsh. And this is what I love about Blackburn. What I won't be able to capture this morning is the sound and the sights and the sounds of summer in Blackburn and all year round. The flocks of galahs and parakeets. I won't be able to capture the owls that sit outside my home in Main Street off and on. Where will they go when these towers come up? When the light pollution, which will increase, makes it harder for them to do their thing in the streets that we all love, which is why we all live here. And the reason more people want to move here and live here is because of this. They come to Australia for this. They don't come here for the apartment towers. They come here for the clean air, the quiet mornings, the space to exist, the space to breathe, the wildlife. So why would we want to let our government change it so drastically and radically? So it's great that the Bellbird area has been spoken about in Parliament by the member for Box Hill. Thank you. But what about the rest of Blackburn? What about the parts of Blackburn that aren't spoken for, that we all love? The reason why we love living here. Where are the 76,000 people going to go, the extra people in Blackburn? Where are they going to go to school? How are they going to fit into Box Hill Hospital? Where are the local businesses, the sustainable, ongoing local businesses? Where are they going to be? And how are they going to make a living and make a quid and be here for the long haul. So I am under no illusion that the planning minister is going to sacrifice 30 minutes of her life to watch Blackburn unfold in front of her and listen to my unscripted, ill-prepared rambling. But I'm speaking from the heart. I was born in East Melbourne. I spent the first 24 years of my life in Balwyn, and now I've lived in Blackburn long enough that I consider myself a Blackburn person. And I have used the walk that I've just taken you on. That was my refuge while I was an unemployed full-time carer for my parents who moved from Balwyn to Sunbury. I was living the life of COVID before COVID, and then I lived by myself during COVID, and the tour that I've just taken you on was my wellness activity to keep my mental health and my focus. And I hope that this tour gives you another contribution on top of my attendance at the community meeting at Box Hill RSL. I think it was late October maybe, and also yesterday, Thursday the 27th of November, in Gardenia Street, Blackburn, at the Field Naturalists Society meeting hall. I'm grateful. I'm incredibly grateful for the staff that were there, the communications team that was there. But I have to confess to some doubt, because I also attended the community meetings held at the community hall in Central Avenue at Moreton Park in 2015, held by Vic Roads, regarding the Blackburn level crossing removal. And people attended there in good faith in their numbers, just as diligently and earnestly as I did. And everything that we loved about Blackburn was taken away, and it was never replaced. So as the camera moves from left to right, all of the trees that used to mask the retail buildings that you can see, they were all removed and taken away. The bluestone landscaping removed, taken away. The garden seating taken away. The grass taken away. And nothing was replaced. And what we got was a strip of concrete and an area that used to be safe for catching the train is now unsafe because of all the cyclists that the strip of concrete was given to, installed for. And I'm going to talk to that as we get there. I've still got 20 minutes and some battery left, so I should make it. But I have a second camera, and I will continue if I don't get through all my topics. So you can see, and this intersection, which is the end of Blackburn Road, you can already see there's evidence since the level crossing removal. Blackburn is already already been going through some changes. There used to be a National Australia Bank on this corner and several shops, and I nearly forgot Queen Street. I will send a separate submission. You can see that 8,500 square metre properties, about 5 or 6 of them, are up for sale. And there's another blight on our lives. So now that development is only 3 stories tall, but the proposed planning changes, Minister and Paul Hamer, you want this outside my windows. You want this up against the edge of my property. I don't have a backyard. I don't have a front yard. I spent 24 years and a little bit longer by the side of my father, mowing our front lawn, outside lawn, backyard lawn, every week and a half. For whatever reason, I don't live in a house with a backyard or a wife or kids. That's not how my life panned out. But what I have ended up with, I value so much. Now, you can look up that easterly view and say, well, there's trees there. Yes, there is. But not the trees that used to be there, that used to give me so much joy. And the concrete strip, which is called a bike path, I don't use it. I don't want to use it. And since the level crossing was removed, and it's coming up 10 years next December, I haven't walked that stretch of Blackburn since the level crossing was removed, because it breaks my heart. And it will break my heart when all of this area, with all of this sky, which you can't put a price on, goes and is replaced by the same sort of towers that you can see in the distance in Box Hill. And so if Blackburn and Brighton and Mitcham and Nunawading and Greensborough all end up looking like Box Hill, how does that maintain, let alone improve, the world's most livable city if everything looks the same? If we end up looking like Hong Kong for the people who love living in Hong Kong, which is, to all intents and purposes, the people who came here from Hong Kong, the people who want to live in places like that. They don't want lawns, they don't want gardens, they don't want backyards, they don't want to mow. They don't want what used to be here. All of this area used to be grass and bluestone and oak. There used to be shade. There used to be shelter from the rain and the sun. And now there's nothing. And you can say, well, it's an improvement, and I would argue that no, it's not. It's not an improvement, because what we lost beats the living daylights out of what we were given. Because when you gave us the level crossing removal, you left us with an unimproved station, which I might have time to go to. So here is where I want to talk briefly about the 76,000 people who are going to live here. Some of them are going to be cyclists, and some of them are going to ride this path like all the other cyclists. They are not going to slow down. They're not going to worry about the people coming off the smart bus and the 3 other bus lines that go to Forest Hill. They're not going to slow down. Some of them aren't even going to stick to the bike path. They're going to speed through this area, and they're going to dodge their way through the bus passengers like traffic cones, and they're going to dive onto level crossing, which is already dangerous because drivers reverse out of the parking bays into the traffic around all the kids.
Passengers, please finish boarding. The train is ready to depart. This train is now.
So, to the Victorian Planning Minister, Sonia Kilkenny, and the Labor member for Box Hill, Paul Hamer, and Richard Welsh, the Liberal member for the Metropolitan East, this tour has been for you, but it's also for the Bellbird Residents Association and the CORAG community group. My contribution, as amateurish and off the cuff and unscripted as it is, but this is what I've tried to do, is show you the Blackburn that I love, and the things about the Blackburn that I love the most, that I value, being a resident and property owner here since 1990, when I was a very young, focused and idealistic young man. And you might be saying to yourself, well, things were easier in 1990. I had no help. I went straight from high school into the State Bank Victoria. 148-year-old institution, went bust. Pyramid Building Society went bust. I was one of the people who helped the Pyramid customers migrate to the State Bank. And then all of a sudden, and I came out of high school in the 1983 recession, which happened to be the last recession Australia had for 30 odd years. And it was the same back then like it is now. No hope for young people. No opportunities, no jobs. That was the world that I entered into. What I've tried to show you here is Blackburn Station. I'm able to show you Blackburn Station exactly as it was 10 years ago, when Vic Roads held their community session, and we all went and gave our contributions and told them what we liked and what we loved, and also offered our thoughts about what could be improved. And this is what we were left with. Exactly the same thing as we had after the level crossing was removed, and it's never been upgraded, it's never been improved. They couldn't even be bothered resurfacing the platform or replacing the markers to help blind people, disabled people off the trains onto the platform and vice versa. So there's a little bit of wonder about the good faith of these community consultation sessions. But I want to say, I don't want to be negative. I don't want to come across as ungrateful. I value the opportunity to give this contribution. Now, if I was to get on this train, this city-bound train, I would be able to show you the current real impact of planning changes and property development just around that bend. There is a property on the right that used to be laden with high pine trees. Over the last 3 to 4 years, those pine trees were removed and a 5 to 6 story apartment development was erected. It's an undisputable fact that property development and planning changes in Melbourne, property developers, with or without permission, are clearing trees. Tree coverage in Melbourne has decreased and diminished, and that is a fact. And I'm going to finish off on yet more unscripted thoughts. That property used to be the Blackburn RSL bowling green. From the west fence to the laneway was the Blackburn RSL bowling green. They sold it off at some stage, and it was the bowling greens became an IGA supermarket. Blackburn had a supermarket on the corner of Blackburn Road and South Parade when I moved here in 1990. It didn't stay long. Blackburn has never had a major supermarket here. The Pace Development installed a supermarket on the ground floor in Railway Road, and it's overpriced. It's a boutique supermarket priced for discerning shoppers. And before the train comes, I want to finish by saying an IGA was developed and built on that land, and it went out of business because of the level crossing removal, and COVID finished it off. And it was always out of stock, and it was always understocked, and it was never very well managed or frequented by locals. And now it's a childcare centre. So what I wanted to say to the Victorian Planning Minister is the 76,000 extra people, are they going to fit into the existing childcare infrastructure, the existing the school infrastructure? How are those extra people going to fit into Box Hill Hospital? I'm not too sure what else I can say in my submission, but I really don't want to say too much. I really want the pictures to tell the story about Blackburn. And I know that there's far more professional footage of Blackburn commissioned by the government I spoke to the young ladies staffing the community feedback session at Gardenia Street yesterday, and they were very free, sharing the fact that they were employed by a consultancy contracted by the state government to run the session. The fact that Paul Hamer and Richard Welsh haven't responded to my personal invitation to come and see for themselves how these planning changes will affect my property. All I know is the only power I have is to contribute, and what I've tried to contribute this morning is to show you what I love about living in Blackburn. And I want to show you what the Victorian State Labor government left us with after they took away our level crossing. And what you didn't give us was an upgraded station. You didn't give us replacement landscaping for what you took away in South Parade. And what we also got as a result of your improvements was the graffiti. And the one thing I forgot to mention while I was there, passing by it, you took away the level crossing with the claim that it would increase traffic flow and make travelling by car through Blackburn more efficient. And I can tell you that no, it doesn't, because there are lines of traffic stretched north and south. The cars still have to stop at the South Parade lights. They still get clogged up in the Blackburn Road roundabout heading towards Whitehorse Road. And I'm going to finish here because we are in a direct line with the laneway that I use to walk to my home from the station. So I want to show you the possible height of your proposed planning changes for the towers that you want to surround my home, because my home is situated so close to the station. The towers that go up in this area will block the sunlight for all of us, not just me, for all of us. And it's all very well to say people want to live in towers and people need to live in homes, but what price on their livability, the peaceful enjoyment of their properties and their mental health? Because I acknowledge that change is going to happen. Change is inevitable. But it's the pace of change that we are being asked to adapt to that is the struggle. So there are 3 minutes left, and I want to say thank you for letting me contribute a submission in this format. If the submission was supposed to be in words only, my words are verbal, but my real submission is the footage. This is Sean McIntyre speaking, a submission to phase 1 of the community feedback for the proposed activity centre planning changes for Nunawading, Mitcham and Blackburn, for the attention of Planning Victoria, the Planning Minister Sonia Kilkenny, the Labor member for Box Hill Paul Hamer, and the Liberal member for the Metropolitan East Region Richard Welsh. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I hope to chat to you again soon.